I think one important set of laws to help prevent sexual abuse, particularly of children, would be the mandatory reporting laws in Maryland and in other states. Certain professions, such as teachers, social workers, law enforcement, are required by law to officially report child abuse, including child sexual abuse, to the Child Protective Services Agency in the jurisdiction. And the reason this is important is most sexual abuse is underreported, and child sexual abuse even more so, as you can imagine. And the most vulnerable children and those who underreport the most are those underserved communities, such as recent immigrants, non-English speakers, poor children, and minorities. Therefore, what the mandatory reporting laws do is they ensure that if a teacher hears something or sees a note or some type of sign of abuse, or if a child discloses something, that teacher is required to report the abuse. So the story doesn't stop there, because the child might not know how to officially report abuse. It might not even know that it's wrong. It may be a case involving a family member where the child really loves the person and has a complex feeling about that. So what happens when Child Protective Services gets involved, an official investigation can be done, and we can ensure that the appropriate actions are taken, including a law enforcement investigation, if appropriate under the law. And this stops the abuse by intervening to help the child and also holding the offender accountable. Most states have mandatory reporting laws at this point, so I think that this is something that is working very well. However, there is room for improvement. What I would like to see in the future to improve mandatory reporting laws is more accountability structures in place. While it's a positive thing that professionals are required to report child sexual abuse, there are some states that do not hold those professionals accountable. For example, in Maryland, there is no criminal penalty for failure to report. In addition, it's very difficult to get data on the number of reports, so I believe that there needs to be more tracking, and those professions need to be held accountable to track the reports that are made and to identify gaps in the system. I work in the legislative arena and work on policy, and I have been doing this for over a decade, and I have seen changes, but the change is too slow. When I talk to survivors of sexual abuse, I constantly hear how things could have been done better, and that's why we work so hard to make things better for the next generation. I believe that there has been a culture change. We hear a lot of talk about the Me Too movement, and there have been high-profile cases such as USA Swimming, USA Gymnastics, the Sandusky case, and unfortunately these cases are horrific and lives have been tragically altered. But I think the positive thing is that victims and survivors may feel that they have a voice because they've seen the impact that other survivors have had, such as at the Larry Nassar sentencing. And I think this can be empowering for survivors, and this is why I enjoy working with survivors who testify for legislation and to change the laws, because sometimes justice isn't in the courtroom, it's changing policy and laws. And I think in that way, the conversation has changed, and hopefully sexual abusers are getting the message and they know that there's penalties in place and that they will be held accountable, because there are too many victims.